Alrighty, hello everyone and welcome. This is Laura Kennedy, your host for Manifest Epic Love, and today's guest is Michelle Baxo. But before we chat with her, I'd like to share a bit more about this event and just cover off some quick housekeeping items in case you're tuning in for the first time. So in this interview series, you will discover the secrets to attract the relationship of your dreams. And with that, I cannot wait. Let's just dive right in. I'm, as mentioned, thrilled to introduce today's guest, Michelle Baxo. And years ago, it seems like Michelle had it all together. You know, she was a psychotherapist, a mind-body healer, and transformational coach. She was professionally successful, adventurous, courageous, social, and really was quite happy overall until she looked at her love life. And she herself says that it was just a hot mess when it came to dating in her love life. So after 2 failed relationships and 6 years of stumbling through the dating scene, she was just about ready to give up until someone had asked her what her biggest regret would be if her life ended right then and there. And she knew that the answer was really not having that true partner to love and to share her experiences with. So from there, Michelle took it upon herself to design what she calls her single best idea, and it's a foolproof transformational project for finding love. She designed it with the idea that it would be a 4-month program, but once she actually started doing the work, the shifts were so profound that she actually met and started her journey with her partner, Tommy, just after 4 weeks. So with that, she restructured her entire business to serve other women like her who wanted that extraordinary love that they really deserve. And today, Michelle and Tommy are engaged and expecting their first child. So first of all, welcome, Michelle, and congratulations. I just have to say that because that's so exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you. I love being here. And yeah, I am very excited to be, still continuously fulfilling the very journey that I started.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lifelong journey, I think,
It
right?
is, yeah.
Of work. Yeah. Wonderful. So I personally just love your story because I think so many of our listeners can relate, especially to that, that before, that single life where you call yourself a hot mess. And I know I can anyways. My dating life, I would very much have called it a hot mess, when I was single. So I'm curious if you could start off by sharing a little bit more about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on what part of those many, many years of that hot mess we want to look at. One of my earliest relationships, the first man that I nearly married, actually, this was in my early 20s. No one would have said I was a hot mess during that relationship, but I was young. I was still figuring out who I was, and really, we were very close to building our life together. And we were together for years. But to be perfectly honest, what I did in that relationship was I looked up to him so much that I looked to him for guidance. I was trying to figure out who I was while being with someone else who I held so highly. And I don't know exactly how to say it, but looking back, it was a beautiful part of my journey. I so appreciate it. And it was I was not in a place where I could build a life with someone and still have that experience of living my whole life with my full self. So then so I ended the relationship, did the work on myself that we all do at the end of relationships. Right. But then who did I end up in a committed relationship with again a few years later? Well, it was someone who was the opposite, someone who looked up to me, someone who thought I was just the bee's knee, someone who I could give guidance to, right? But then now I'm with someone who has a drinking problem, wasn't aggressive towards me physically, but scared me when he would, drink a lot. In his life, again, he was a beautiful man. I fell deeply in love with him. We were looking to build a life together, but that wasn't the life I wanted. When I looked to building a life, building a family. What's my vision of myself? And is this person actually a match for us? So it wasn't at all. But then after
Right.
that, it sort of felt like I'd done, okay, well, I tried this way and then I tried that way and neither worked. So then I didn't know what I was doing.
Mhm.
That was probably when the hottest of messes began. uh, because of course I was, as someone who professionally was doing, professionally, I do personal development work. And of course, to do that with any authenticity and integrity, you're doing work on yourself at the same time. So here I am,
Mhm.
figuring out who I am, accomplishing these amazing things in my career, in my life. And like I said or as you shared at the beginning, from the outside eye, it was like I lived this great, exciting life and really had nothing to
Mhm.
people probably would have thought either that I didn't want to be in a relationship or that I was really happy with the kind of dating life that I was living, which was,
Right.
to be perfectly honest, was mostly dating. And so a lot of crushes, a lot of very sort of how do I say this? Like lovers or friends with benefits,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
meeting people with a lot of potential, like these amazing, musicians or aspiring entrepreneurs and world
Mhm.
travelers, like all these incredible men who were absolutely not looking for a committed relationship and someone to build a family with. But
Right.
I thought that was all that was available. So I'm starting to look at, okay, well, if this is what's available, and I believe, we start our journey with ourselves, then I guess I need to change me to match what's out there. But what that
Mm.
trap led to was, gosh, that trap led to me questioning, maybe I don't want a monogamous relationship. Maybe the reason I'm attracted
Okay.
is that I don't want. So then I'm thinking maybe I'm looking for polyamory, or maybe I want this great career and a lover, but not an actual, domestic relationship.
Mm.
I started saying I don't want kids anymore. I don't want kids. It's not because it's not something I could envision with what the world looked like was available to me.
Mm.
And I could go on and on, but it was, one interesting story after another and nothing leading to anything close to what it was that I really wanted. And that was for, after that relationship, I told you it was 6 years of
Mm.
what felt like banging my head against the wall. Like it was very, very,
Yeah.
disheartening, frustrating, disappointing. And then, and to the
Mhm.
point, like I said, where I became resigned and actually started changing what it was I said I wanted.
Yeah. I think, so many of our listeners can probably relate to this. Again, that's why
Mm.
I love, kind of your intro that we did at the beginning and your story, because I know I myself had a very similar journey, and it was
Mm.
like, it seemed to be one person after the other that seemed to have potential, but it, just wasn't lasting. Or yes, I definitely got into that trap myself of questioning, okay, they're not exactly what I was looking for, what I had in mind, but maybe I don't need that, right? Or maybe,
Mm.
yeah, it's kind of like you're almost, in a sense, it might sound bad, but lowering your standards, right? It's
Oh,
like,
because if it doesn't,
yeah,
this is I laugh at it now, but it wasn't funny at the time.
of
But, and
course, yeah.
a lot of my clients deal with this too, is, when it doesn't work out with someone who we were sort of compromising ourselves for, like when it doesn't work out with someone
Mhm.
who's good enough, the good enough ones, then we say to ourselves, oh my gosh, if I can't make it work with him, oh, especially if he ends it, right? Oh my gosh, if he
Right.
doesn't want me, then what do I have a shot with? Like, oh my gosh, and we really start, gosh, the destruction that has in our relationship with ourselves and what we're really
Mhm.
to really put ourselves out there for. Ooh, rough.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think it can be so dangerous because if you continuously are, lowering your standards or changing who you are authentically, it can be really dangerous because, let's say you do change your standards and you end up, compromising or making it work with someone just
Mhm.
so that you kind of enter in that relationship. Well, in the long run, you're not going to be happy, right? And so it's
That's right.
probably 2 years down the road when you realize this isn't working either, right?
Yeah. Well, and then that's
Mm-hmm.
a whole other, I don't know if we'll have time to go into it today, but
Yeah.
the whole other area is what we call our standards, and where did those standards come from? And
Mm.
is it from what we want now, or is it from, you know, or is it a reaction to what we don't want? Right? Is it a reaction to something that
Right.
happened later? You know, or is it from what we told ourselves as a little girl? Well, we're not little girls anymore. Like, what do we want now as grown women, like grown professional women?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so it gets confusing, really.
It
Really
does. Yes.
confusing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I feel like there's so many amazing pieces we could touch on, but let's just spend a
Yeah.
little time actually now, if you'd like, kind of on
Mm.
that standards piece, because I think too, one thing that I've been hearing from clients and people lately is just that, as a society as well, there's kind of these expectations that you should be in a relationship with someone by, let's say, your mid 20s, and then in your late 20s, you're engaged, and then you get married, and then you have a baby. And those things are all wonderful if that's what you want, right? Like, I think
Mhm.
that's an important distinction too. I'd love to hear your thoughts if, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to look that way for each person. And I think like staying true to what it is that you want
Yeah.
could kind of tie in nicely here.
Well, definitely. You know, I look back and I look back to that first relationship I told you about when I was in my, I don't know, 19 or 20 when I first got together with a really great man. But I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad it didn't work out because and I'm so glad I was able to see that I didn't know even what my standards were yet. I didn't even actually really know
Mm-hmm.
what it was that I wanted. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people do fall into the trap of, thinking they know what they want and following that,
Mm-hmm.
even though that, and women's intuition's pretty extraordinary, even though there's that, like, that feeling in their gut, there's red flags, there's this, there's that. And often we don't listen to them out of fear, right? Out of fear of,
Mm-hmm.
decision or letting something great go. Um, you know, and so how do I say this? So yeah, for some people that really was the right thing for them, but there's a reason why more than 50% of people get divorced. And if you look at where
Mm-hmm.
that statistic comes from, the generation, right? The generation just a little before us, where they did get
Yeah.
married really young. It was from their parents' house um,
Mm-hmm.
to marriage, right? To their
Yeah.
their wedlock house, right? And it's a different time now, with especially
Mm-hmm.
women really finding some of their self-worth in their life's purpose, or in career,
Mm-hmm.
or even just challenging ourselves, like feeling like we've really lived life in whatever way that looks. It doesn't have to be career, but it could look a lot of different.
Mm-hmm.
We were
Yeah.
gifted with, or we gave ourselves this extra decade to really discover who we are. And
Mm.
that's important. And I think that's so valuable. But then what then happens is then we get really, really, really scared of losing that. So we start
Right.
creating, and this is where we need to watch out with standards. Then we start creating these completely unrealistic standards, or have none at all. It's like we swing all the way
Mm.
one way, or we're all the way the other. So, for me, it was like it's seemingly none at all, because I'm dating,
Right.
like I think back to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy, sure, he was this incredible, mind-blowing, percussionist, like drummer,
Mm-hmm.
and good for him for, he was taking on the management of the whole thing. That's all amazing. But he's also this guy who, just wanted to smoke pot all day when he wasn't working,
Right.
and didn't want to be you said, you do anything that smells like commitment at all. He'd run the other direction. It's
Mm.
a big game, or I think of all the different kinds of people. They had something that I wanted,
Right.
but not a lot of what I wanted, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. I
you
think
could
it's,
do. Mhm. No, go ahead.
yeah, I no, I was just going to say, I think like your point before about, you know, sometimes they don't, like women don't realize that they don't exactly know what they want. And
Yes.
oftentimes, I mean, I think it's super important to get clear on what that is that we want. And I'm sure you agree.
Oh, totally.
And sometimes it takes those, not so great experiences or people that we've dated and kind of realizing, okay, I know I don't want that to influence, what we do want.
Yeah, but we got to be careful there, right? Because that's where I could say something like, all of a sudden let's say I don't want to date a musician because that's what happened. Like we often collapse the wrong things together. Or
right.
I don't want, we say things like, I want someone who will be loyal. Now, of course we want someone who's going to be loyal, but we're sneaky, right? The way we language things and the way we create our desires. Isn't that really just a response to, I don't want someone who's going to disappoint me, or I don't want someone who will cheat, or I don't want someone who will, and that, that's now attracting more of what you don't want, even though it sounds it sounds like a positive attribute. No, it's a reaction, right? It's a reaction.
Yeah.
And then we become on guard for these things that we're so afraid is going to happen to us again, because gosh, we don't want to get burned again, right? Like anything to get burned. And so this is why I'm saying we got to watch, because what I don't want is any of your listeners listening and thinking to themselves, yeah, you know what? I've got my standards. I'm standing by them, but because you've got to really look and assess those standards. Are they walls? Are they barriers? Are they ways that you make sure no one can get to you? So then you're never at risk of being hurt. Right. So that's what I was saying. We swing it in both ways, either, dating all the wrong ones, because then you're never, some part of you knows it's never going to turn out. So you might get disappointed, but you're never really going to be crushed again, or have to crush, or if you've been the breaker up, or you don't have to crush anyone else again, right?
Yeah.
Right. Or you create these completely, like sometimes contradictory standards, like you have to be, like one way and another way, and they completely contradict each other. Like the two can't live together, but you create them as your standards. And that's another tricky way. So we hide behind, I have standards, I won't settle. But what that really is I'll never have to open my heart to anyone. I'll never have to take a risk.
Yeah, it's like that sneaky way that resistance and fear shows up, right? It's kind of trying to protect us when that just won't work.
No, and I get why we do it, and it's an important mechanism. It's part of what keeps us, safe in a lot of ways. And there are some times, where that is important to be looking there, but most of it is so in our blind spot. It's hidden from our view. We've come to understand it in a certain way, and then we don't question it. We don't, we don't really have a real look to say, okay, hang on. Is this standard or desire, or this, is it what I really want, or is it what I've put together to make sure I don't get hurt again?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that that you clarified that too, because I think, it's just about kind of taking a step back and asking yourself, what is it that I really want in a partner? And like you mentioned, not reacting from what you had before that you don't like, but like that can be somewhat helpful, but making sure that it's coming from a place of, okay, best case scenario, like what do I want in my dream person? What will work for me? What are the types of values like that are really important to me? Yeah. And again, not coming from that place of fear or resistance or protection. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So rather than something like loyal, which is, again, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad trait, but we kind of know it's a response to the negative. You want to look at, okay, first of all, what kind of, why do I want someone who's loyal? Okay, well, let me have a look. I want someone who's loyal because I want to feel safe.
Yeah.
Right. I want to be with someone where, I want to be with someone who I can count on. Right. And again, why do I want that? Well, so that we can actually build a future together. I want someone I can count on so that when we say we're going to, start saving towards buying a house, that we're actually going to do that. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And so when you start sort of looking at okay, well, why do I say that? What's the experience that I want? What do I want to be doing with my partner? What does that life look like that I want to build? And And then also, what is a nice compliment to me? Right? What is,
Mm-hmm.
really,
Yeah.
what do I have to provide? And what would be a really great like a great balance or compliment or mirror to that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
suddenly now we're not looking at this checklist of traits. We're now
Yeah.
really like looking at what does that life look like, feel like, taste like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it's a
Yeah.
whole other way to start creating. And then we might say something, well, that's when we start saying, actually what I want is a true partnership. I always know women
Mm-hmm.
are starting to look in the right places when they start defining what a true partnership is, rather than
Yeah.
he's got to be, this height and this kind of job or this, that, and all those things are fine, right? But they're not the real
Mm-hmm.
root. It's not deep down. It's what you think you've come up with that will make you happy
Right.
versus what it is you really want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of looking at like your why. I know you use that word a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
why it is that you want those things and your overall vision for
Yeah.
that partnership and really feeling into it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I know we kind of touched on a few of these pieces already, but I'm just curious, like maybe we can chat a bit more about like what are some of the key areas for women to focus on, if they want to change what their love life looks like or they're ready for that deep
Mm.
partnership.
Yeah, really good. So, okay, so in a nutshell, I'm going to give you some like really quick little basics and then we can go a little deeper. But basically,
Okay.
it's, you know, whether we want to admit it or not, we've got barriers. We all have barriers around our
Mhm.
lives, right? And it's what has us have what we have and not have what we don't have. So first off, so
Mhm.
removing the barriers, really attracting the right people and learning. So one, learning how to, and this part of this happens through removing the barriers, but learning how to attract the right people and also be attracted to the right people. That's usually
Right.
that's
Yeah.
usually more the problem. But so looking at who you're attracted to, and is that actually a match for, it's like if you want to be a millionaire and keep applying to McDonald's, like there's an inconsistency there, right?
Right.
So we got, you got to actually get real about that and learn how to make that shift. But then also, are you showing up? So those people, once we determine who are those people, those right people for you to now start being attracted to, then it's how do you show up on their radar, right? So
Mhm.
that's a whole other question. And then so mindset combined with action, right? So
Mhm.
if you're saying to yourself, I heard this great line recently. If you're saying to yourself, I'm too busy to go on dates or dating's a waste of my time. And I'm literally a human being who has said this. Okay. So no judgment,
Yeah.
but,
Yes.
but dating's a waste of my time. I don't have time to date. My spare time's precious to me and I don't want to waste it like getting to know new people who it's probably not going to work out with.
Mhm.
All that resignation, like, look, that's consistent with someone who for whom love and a future relationship is not important to. So you either got to get
Mhm.
real that it's not important to you and then stops pretending like it is, or get real
Yeah.
and have your actions be consistent with someone who does care. Because anything we care about,
Mhm.
we work at. And no, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's not you go on one date and fall in love with that one person. Just like it's, like life just doesn't work out.
Yes.
Like, not with like the good
Yes.
stuff, right? It's like, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't go on one jog and become a marathon runner either.
Yes.
So
Oh my gosh, I love it.
right. So a big shift that has to happen, for women, even before starting this journey, is actually getting clear and honest with yourself about whether or not this is something that's important to you. And I'll argue
Mhm.
anyone listening who's, to any of your listeners, like why would you be listening to this if this wasn't important to you? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
so I will assert anyone who's even engaging this conversation, it is actually very important to you, but likely you're pretending a little bit like, yeah,
Mhm.
it's important, but like, it'll happen when it happens. Or yeah, it's important, but I
Yes.
don't want to do any work on it. So that is a really, gosh, like really before anything else is important. I could give you the best dating tip in the world and it won't make any difference if you don't
Yeah.
actually own how important it is to you and be willing to do the work.
Oh my gosh, yes. I am like
Right.
grinning over ear to ear over here
Uh-huh.
because it's so true. And this is, this is a big piece of what I'm all about as well. It's just like, I mean, I use yogic principles that I tie in, and one of them is truth. And it's, a lot of times I'll pull that out when talking about this. It's like, let's get truthful with yourself. Like, is this important to you? Is it a priority? And yes, like you said, if people are listening to this right now, chances are, high chances are that it is.
Right.
And so then it,
either they're really wanting to do something else and procrastinating that. Right?
That's right.
It's going to be one or the other. Either way,
right.
You're not being real.
And either way, let's take this as an opportunity to invite folks to be honest with themselves about, is this important, or what is important to you? If it's not this, which I think it is, but if it's not this, make sure you're living in alignment and investing in what is important, time-wise, money-wise, whatever it is, spending time and just getting serious about, like I like to say that it's this active attraction, right? So it's not just sitting back and waiting passively for it to happen. We need to work with the universe or with God or, whatever we believe in to have that balance.
Totally. Yeah, that's really good.
Okay.
Okay. Woo, I feel like we got really passionate there for a minute.
I know. Where were we?
Right? It's so important, especially, and because I've been that resigned person. I've been that one foot in, one foot out. I've been the, or gosh, this was even trickier. Been the person where it really felt like I was working hard on it. I really felt like but there were a lot of places I was unwilling to go, a lot of things I was unwilling to do. And there was a lot of righteousness over there with me. But because of that righteousness was in the way of me even taking the actions I wasn't taking. Right. So, and that's the armor, right? So that's one of the things I know, you and I wanted to touch on too is, we build armor. And I would say, we know it's very obvious when we can say men, men have their armor. It's really easy for us to look and do that. And it's even easy for us to look at other women and see, they've got armor. A little harder for us to look at ourselves and see our own armor. So what do I mean by armor? Right. Well, if you think of what armor is, right, if you sort of picture a knight in shining armor, what does his armor look like? It's like a protective shield all over you, protecting you, and actually in some ways making you stronger. Now you're not actually any stronger, but nothing can get to you. Right. In the same way, if you took that armor off, and I mean, literally, if we imagine taking those pieces of metal off of our body, then what are we? Well, then we're vulnerable to pain. We're vulnerable to being hurt and so on. Right. So it's, in a lot of ways, we've put on this armor and it's made perfect sense. It's made perfect sense because we've been hurt before. We've walked around with no armor with someone, and then we got burned. It didn't turn out, or we got crushed, or whatever, whatever it was, right? So then we put extra armor on. Now, it gives us the experience of being stronger because you're able to do things now that you weren't able to do. And for a lot of us, I know for me, it actually gave me the strength and power to do a lot of to achieve things personally that I wouldn't have achieved otherwise, right? So in some ways, I'm really grateful to that armor. But the problem with it is because it's based on fear, it separates us from people. So it might work in your career, but it doesn't work when it comes to finding love. So things like righteousness or I won't trust, I don't trust until I know there's no possible way I'll ever get hurt, which is an impossible thing to ever know. Right.
Right.
So, or, being, we sometimes do it with becoming very mysterious, or sometimes we even do it. It's almost like armor with spikes where we're a little extra bitchy, right?
Yeah.
Or we tell them everything, or it's like, I'm going to tell you everything there is about me right off the bat. So then you can't you'll, you'll love me or hate me before you have a chance to hurt me. Right. So there's all kinds of different ways that we put up this armor. And it's really important to get to know your your individual armor so that you can dismantle it. But then, okay, but here's the thing. And I always want to be really responsible when I say this, because just taking off your armor is dangerous and is irresponsible and is likely to bring you pain if you don't do the other piece that has to go with it. So, so can you take all your armor off, right? So now you're this, beautiful, raw, open, exposed woman. But now we need to do actually maybe the hardest part or equally difficult part, which is building boundaries, and they're your authentic boundaries. And what do I mean by that? Well, probably it resonates with what you teach around truth. It's this is your boundaries from a place of authenticity, from personal power, from self-love, right? From what allows you to maintain and grow who you really are, to have that. And we know that experience, like I'm being my whole self. But as women, this is so challenging because we also have that nurturing side of ourselves, whether we're moms or not. There's a part of us that's very, very, very good at accommodating, very, very putting other people first. And it's a beautiful part of being a woman, right? It is a strength of ours, but we don't have to work on that strength anymore. We're already very, very good at it. What we're weak at is creating the boundaries, is having those healthy, supportive boundaries. And sometimes here's what we'll do sometimes is we'll say them, we'll create them, but we don't withhold them. We're not accountable for that they're maintained. We just get pissed off at people for crossing them. Right. It's like drawing a line in the sand and then being upset that people walked over it. Well, it's like, well, it's just a line in the sand. Like, what the heck's the big deal? Right. There actually has to be someone there to say, oh, actually, I don't take calls during the workday. And turning off your phone, this is a random example, right? These are my, especially for entrepreneurs or business owners, these are my work hours. Right. Or, I don't have sex until I'm in a committed relationship, whatever those things are that really have the experience of being whole. And it's a different kind of unmessable with. It's not the one with all the metal and armor and swords and shields and all of that, right? Because then you'll be really strong and single forever. Right? But it's actually when you do this work, right, where you're removing the armor and then building those authentic boundaries, not only can you now, gosh, the relationship you wind up with just in who you are. I mean, it's like, it's transformational in comparison to what we do otherwise. Right. So that relationship and your experience of yourself in the long term, right? The first year is fun for everybody, but then it's okay, what happens after that? Right. But also it actually shifts who you're attracting. Cause remember that part I said earlier, it's not just about shifting who you're attracted to, but also whose radar do you show up on? Who sees you as their
right?
And if you're finding the people who want you are completely different than what's good for you and what you really want, well, you got to take responsibility for that. It's because of how you're showing up. If you're getting pushed around, it's because you're showing up like a pushover. If nobody's asking you out, it's because you're showing up as scary. Like it's, so I could go on and on, but those two things, it's really important that those two things are happening together. And it's very difficult. It is both parts are counterintuitive for women.
Yes. Yeah. I love this. This is just like, I'm feeling so fired up again because I think it's so important. It's like, yes, we need to strip down that armor, but that doesn't then just it doesn't stop there, like you said, because that's when someone can come in and walk all over you and hurt you. And it's that other piece that's so important of setting those authentic boundaries. And I think even again there, that's when it can tie back to truth, is living in alignment with those boundaries once you set them. And it's hard, like you said. I mean, we do want to accommodate people. We do sometimes think, well, I could just, I know I said I had that boundary, but I could bend it a little bit this time. And, it takes practice, right? I think that's another big piece too, is the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And then the better you'll be able to attract in those people that will respect those boundaries, right? And that will be a better fit for you.
Exactly. And something that can go in there too, there's a big difference between letting go our boundaries or being creative with withholding them. So, like it's, and I love, this is actually something that men are good at. Usually when I work with women, we're trying to get away from the masculine, because we've actually, part of our armor is we've built up so many really strong masculine qualities, which is great. It lets us be successful in a lot of ways. So usually I wouldn't say, hey, take on another masculine trait. But in this case,
right.
This is something we really can take from a man's book. And it's funny because we resent men for it, but it's actually something that we need more than anything. And that is, if you think about a man, if you think about dating a man, something that and I'm speaking generally, this isn't every single man on the planet, but this is generally speaking, is they're generally very good at compartmentalizing the different areas of their life. Now,
right.
So you gotta be careful with that too. But what's good about it is they don't think to themselves, like their job's important to them. Let's say his fitness and his gym routine's important to him. His friends are important to him. His sports are important to him. His wife or lover is important to him. He's got lots of things that are important to him. And he's generally pretty unapologetic about that. So if you want to go on a date and it's, his gym night, he's probably going to say, and it doesn't mean he's going to say no, but he's probably going to say, okay, well, I'll be done at the gym at 8. So let's go out then. As a woman, it becomes oh, I really want to spend time with you. Oh my gosh. But I'm also, I really said I was going to work out, and, I guess I can work out anytime. So, okay, let's go out. What time do you want to go? What do you want to do? And we throw that at the window versus saying, I'm going to the gym. So I'm done at the gym at 8. Let's go out then. So you're being, you got to be careful. It's not saying, no, I can't go out because this is my gym night. Like, if you're going to fit someone else into your life, you got to fit them into your life. It takes something, right? But it does, but you see what I'm saying? So you're open versus, either, I don't know, that analogy wasn't going to work, so I can't finish it.
That's okay. No, I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah. I think as women, sometimes we're too quick just to, okay, there's an opportunity, I have to drop everything, right? And it's like, if they care about you, they also want you to do the things that are important to you as well. So if you have, your schedule with the gym or with a girlfriend or whatever it is, like, you want to be somewhat flexible, I think, again, if this is a priority for you and it is an opportunity, but you don't want to just drop everything and say, okay, I'm free whenever. Like, I had all these other plans, but I'm canceling them for you, right? That's not going to be the most attractive quality either. So.
It's definitely not sexy. And I think more importantly too, is then you're not sexy to you. You become less attractive to you when you sell yourself out that way. But then again, you have to watch, because it's so quick. The other walls come up, right? Which is like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. The overwhelmed conversation. I'm overwhelmed. I can't fit anything else. This isn't the right time. Next year, I'll work on my love life. Right.
Yeah.
So we flip as women, we are just so quick to swing all the way one way and then swing all the way the other. And that's why a lot of us are afraid. So, you were asking earlier on the call, what are some of the important things on this journey? Well, the other one is dealing with self-sabotage, right? Because as soon as a lot of why, let me rephrase this. A lot of why women are af- resist, afraid, whether they admit it or not, like of actually having what it is that they really want, is we're afraid of losing ourselves in a relationship again. We're afraid that we are going to
Exactly.
compromise all those things that we've spent so long building, like building up, because we know in ourselves, our automatic, our default is to throw what's important to us to the wind, right? So
Yeah.
that fear really does need to be dealt with, and so that you can have both, so that you can be that whole
Yeah.
and allow allow that intimacy that you want into your life and make room for
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. It's such a good point. I think, oftentimes we'll hear from people that are in our circles, right? So again, like folks that are listening to these types of things, or that are engaged with us, or other coaches that are in these areas. And sometimes we'll hear, it's just not really a priority for me right now, or it's not that important and I'm focusing on other pieces. And again, if that's true, that's great. But there is a little bit of like a disconnect, right? Of why you're spending some time engaging in these types of things, but you're saying it's not important. And I think that is where self-sabotage can come in, where resistance can come in, because in a way we're telling ourselves that it's not that important. So if it doesn't work out, that's okay. We're kind of like proving ourselves right. And it's really just that fear of, maybe failure, maybe it not happening, or fear of being hurt. And, it's just, I think it comes back to, again, to like letting go of the armor, and then doing those next steps to make sure that you have the appropriate boundaries for yourself and for others. And it just, I think it just all ties in together so beautifully. Yeah.
Oh, it's
So
a
good.
topic, right?
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so I mean, I know you and I could probably talk about this for hours, and I would love to. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes.
So we only have a few minutes left. Do you want to chat a little bit about your free gift for our listeners?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, so for anyone listening, something that I want to make available to you is what's called a free love discovery call. So, love discovery call is an opportunity to speak with, it will be either with me or one of my amazing love breakthrough coaches. And what you'll be doing together is you'll be actually looking at, okay, well, what is it going to take for me as an individual, what's it going to take for me to get to where I want to go in my love life? All right. And it's also an opportunity to get a bit of a consultation of the kind of work that we do, because no matter what, everybody should be just looking at, there's so many amazing, professionals and experts, and, it's important you hook yourself up with your match, right? So, whether it's us or someone else, but we'll make a recommendation you on whether or not what we do is a match for you, and if you see it as a match too, we can tell you about it. But either way, you're leaving with complete clarity on what it's going to take for you to get to where you want to go. And I promise it's something different. Even after hearing this conversation, you'll start getting a sense of it. But this is for people who really want to instead of have an idea, get really crystal clear about it. So that's a really committed conversation to changing your life.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, because it is so personalized to the individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said, this can help get people's wheels spinning, kind of have them look inside themselves a little bit. But it's so helpful to have somebody else, have a conversation with you, and they can pull out those hidden blocks. So thank you for offering that to our listeners. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if anyone listening wants to grab that, highly suggested. There is a link right on this page, so you can just click through to that and then have access to your love call.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing. So thank you so much, Michelle, again, for offering that, and just for everything you shared here today. Amazing conversation, and so much that our listeners can take away from this.
Good. Yeah, it's such a pleasure. I really appreciate being a part of this epic love journey for people. Come on. I love it.
Yes.
Let's all strive
Yeah,
for
epic
epic
love.
love.
Yes, let's all get there for
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
Okay. And to our listeners, thanks so much again for tuning in. I'm sure you're happy you did. And until we chat again, sending you much, much love and gratitude. Namaste.